Hello and welcome to IDDTalks. My name is Anastasia Lavrina and I welcome you to ADA University. Now I'm honored to greet Professor Gábor Hamza, Professor Department of Civil Roman Law, Eötvös Loránd University in Hungary. Professor, warm welcome to ADA University.
Thank you very much for the kind invitation. I do appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We have some questions, and I'm more than sure we'll have very interesting and interactive discussions. And I would like to start with this question. You're one of the Europe's leading scholars in Roman and comparative law. You have a great experience in that. So how does the Roman legal tradition still shape today's efforts to harmonize private law in Europe?
Well, the background from a historical viewpoint of almost all legal systems, or of almost every European country, still are based on Roman law traditions, because the concept of law, that not only private law related issues but also public law related issues, so presently constitutional law related issues, go back to the experience of the Romans.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. But you have previously referred to Azerbaijan as one of the countries whose legal development is often underrepresented in Western societies and Western comparative law studies. So what in your view makes Azerbaijan's legal evolution distinct within the broader Eurasian region?
So first, Azerbaijan became has a centuries-old tradition, or traditions, I should use the plural of tradition, going back to ancient times. Azerbaijan had some links with the Roman Empire from both historical, cultural and geographical viewpoint. And then later other traditions came about. Nonetheless, these traditions up until the 20s of the 19th century were maintained. Also the peace treaties, the two famous peace treaties, for instance, were to a considerable extent modeled after the peace treaty experience dating back to the Roman Empire. And then the historical development took another turn. Azerbaijan became part of the Tsarist Russian Empire, but we have to take into consideration that also in Tsarist Russia, the Roman law experience was quite considerable. Unfortunately, even during the lifetime of the Soviet Union. And this had reflected the Azerbaijani experience of codification on two levels, on the doctrine, as far as the doctrine of law generally is concerned, and also as far as the codification experience was considered.
Well, and from a comparative law perspective, where will you place Azerbaijan's private law tradition? It's closer to the continental European model, the post-Soviet tradition, which you also mentioned, or a hybrid that deserves its own classification?
Well, the codificational experience started in the second half, as far as the Russian Empire is concerned, in the second half of the 19th century. A draft civil code was prepared. Unfortunately, this draft civil code did not go into effect because of the outbreak of World War I. So everything was prepared. But then, in 1918, the first socialist type code with regard labor law was adopted, and 2 years later, Goichberg, the chief architect of the first civil code of Soviet Russia, and it had a substantial influence on the legal development as far as the codification is concerned. Although Azerbaijan back then had no civil code properly speaking, what was in effect was the Russian civil code, which was heavily patterned, apart from some ideological things, after the German law, which was heavily influenced by Roman law. And the same is holding true to the second Soviet-style civil law-related codification, which took place in the Soviet Union, which took part in 1956, which is it's not in effect anymore, which was also in effect in Azerbaijan. And then the first civil code of Azerbaijan reflects, so comprises all these legal elements based on European legal traditions or Roman law relations. And one more particularity which has to be emphasized, that in Azerbaijan, and this I think is the only country in Europe where even the constitution contains civil or private law related elements, as far as, for instance, the protection of property, of private property is concerned. So to put it in a very brief way, historically seen, Roman law experience by means of Russian and later Soviet socialist experience, codificational experience, and later a particular feature, I have to emphasize it again, that there is an interconnection between the Constitution and the civil law. This is a unique thing, and it should be taken into serious consideration in all European countries.
Very interesting. Professor, I guess you're aware about a very important logistical project in the region, that is the Middle Corridor. And Azerbaijan is actively promoting the quick realization of all aspects of this corridor. And legal part is also very important to make sure that all participants are engaged from all perspectives, including the legal cooperation. So, in your opinion, what kind of legal architecture is required to support such large transportational projects?
Well, the Middle Corridor is a very important project which was started in the 2000 and in 2016 His Excellency President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, signed the contract on the occasion of the opening the railroad line until Kars in Turkey. And this project, as far as its technical part is concerned, has not been finished. So it takes considerable, a huge project, but on the right way, on the right track. And I think this is extremely important, not only, quote unquote, from the viewpoint of Hungary, but also from the viewpoint of all countries on the Balkans, first Turkey, then Bulgaria, Serbia, Croatia.
Yeah, so from Central Asia to the South Caucasus.
From China. Yeah, another kind of Silk Road, so to speak.
Coincide with Belt and Road.
And this is more than crucial for all these countries. All countries will take utmost advantage of this project. And as far as I know, it has not been objected by the present leaders of the European Union, although they are not very supportive. But but they do not object it because they recognize, in particular Italy actually, they recognize the utmost importance from both political and economic viewpoint of this project. And we do hope that this project will be completed in not too distant future.
Indeed, fantastic. And one more question I have, Professor. Hungary and Azerbaijan, two countries which, let's say, practice cooperation in all spheres, starting from political sphere, then economy, transport, logistics, green energy, and etc. And now the future of legal cooperation between Baku and Budapest. Which areas of law you think it's more attractive and necessary for two sides to work together?
Actually, the direct diplomatic relations between Azerbaijan and Hungary came about in the early years of 2000. Mr. Hassanov, the former prime minister, was the first ambassador to Hungary. This also means that Azerbaijan considered the priority the connections with Hungary. His successor also laid particular attention on legal cooperation between the two countries. I remember I always took part on the symposia organized by the embassy of Azerbaijan in the Eötvös Street. Almost twice a year, an international symposium took place as far as legal issues are concerned. I had the privilege to make report about the legal development in Hungary. Hungary adopted a new civil code, a new basic law, constitution, fundamental law, and also a new penal law. And this was followed, as far as I know, first of the ambassador of the Republic of Azerbaijan, but he had direct connections with his colleagues in Azerbaijan at different universities. And one more thing, Azerbaijan is a member of the Council of Turkic States, and Hungary, Budapest is the headquarters, the center of this international organization, although Hungary has also only an observer status.
Organization for Turkic States.
But the headquarters, the leading, on a regular basis, I take part on the various meetings of the Council of Turkic States, and also there's an academy in Kazakhstan coordinating the scholarly activity of the Turkic states. But as far as in a more concrete way the cooperation is concerned, the Hungarian government has a new kind of stipendium hungaricum, and quite a number of young students coming from Azerbaijan avail themselves of this possibility. And both at the Ludovica National University of Public Defense and at the same time at my university. And one more thing, unfortunately, in Budapest there is no Cultural Institute of Azerbaijan, but there is a very active Yunus Emre Institute in Budapest, geographically very near located to the embassy of Azerbaijan, and almost on a regular basis international symposia take place in this building, Yunus Emre Institute. And I wish, this is a wishful, I think more than a wishful thinking, that Azerbaijan could also, and the same is holding true for Hungary, establish a cultural institute in Baku and in Budapest.
Well, let's see how the situation will be changed in the near future. But as for now, Professor, thank you so much for joining IDDTalks. Thank you for your time and sharing with us your experience.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate
Thank you.
the
Thank you very
invitation.
much. I would like to remind our viewers you watched IDDTalks here at ADA University. Our guest today was Professor Gábor Hamza, Department of Civil Roman Law, Eötvös Loránd University in Hungary. My name is Anastasia Larina. Do stay with us and see you next time.